Hello, my name is Ozifa Hossein Usha. Now I'm going to talk about the prevailing style that I have chosen in my last assignment and a particular text from my syllabus. So I have titled my assignment, this assignment, that experience is the teacher of knowledge. So I have chosen the topic empiricism in my last assignment. Now I'm going to talk about the particular prevailing style I have chosen. This style because to me it's interesting and gives the idea of all concepts that originate in experience. So a brief introduction of empiricism. So what is empiricism? This is basically a theory which is a philosophical doctrine that holds the view that the knowledge is derived from experience which needs to be learned in a structural manner. This theory believes the idea that the origin of all knowledge senses experience and it rejects the notion of innate ideas. So, innate idea is a concept of knowledge which is said to be universal to all humanity. That is something people are born with rather than people something have learned through experience. There are certain ideas that neither acquaint or constructed by the mind out of ideas received experience. If we look at carefully, there are two main theses for this. Number one is concept empiricism, and the second one is judgment empiricism. Concept empiricism is somebody who says all concepts come from experience, and judgment empiricism says that it has to do with the truth, knowledge. It claims all knowledge comes from experience. So, how this is influential to understand Restoration and 18th century literature. However, there is no strong evidence in this for understanding Restoration, but I can say empiricism slightly influenced to understand Restoration and 18th century literature. We know the characteristics of Restoration are the social and political conflict, imitation of ancients, realism, new literary forms such as drama, poetry, satire, and heroic couplet. Although this is mainly the rise of new classicism, which is absolutely different than empiricism. As said before, this theory empiricism supports the knowledge based on experience. So, firstly, we will understand social and political conflict only when we will experience them. That's how empiricism can be influential. This style was also influential in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Development stemming from British empiricism also gave rise to several important movements. Secondly, realism, the reality of contemporary world which absolutely depends on the experience. However we read or watch, we will only understand through our experience. So this is how empiricism can be slightly influenced to understand the Restoration and 18th century literature. So the text I have chose, these were the ideas of particular style. Now I'm going to talk about the text. So I have chosen Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Reason of choosing this text is the experience of the protagonist. Gulliver's Travels is an adventure story. The story of this text is a mixture of savage satire, religion, or human nature, mocking English customs and the aspects of politics. This book is a very famous book for both children and adults. It has 4 parts, and all the parts talks about the experience of Gulliver's traveling to different places. The main theme of this that no human is beyond corruption. So in the first book, when the ship Gulliver is traveling on is destroyed in a storm, Gulliver ends up on the island of Lilliput, where he awakes to find that he has been captured by Lilliputians, very small people, approximately 6 inches in height. Gulliver is treated with compassion and concern. In turn, he helps them solve some of their problems, especially their conflict with their enemy. Gulliver's fall from favor, however, because he refuses to support the emperor's desire to enslave the Blefuscians, and because he makes water to put out a place fire, Gulliver flees to Blefusco. where he converts a large warship to his own use and sets sail from Blefusco, eventually to be rescued at the sea by English merchant ship and return to his home in England. So, in the second book, as he travels as a ship surgeon, Gulliver and a small crew are sent to find water on an island. Instead, they encounter the land of giants. As the crew flees, Gulliver is left behind and captured. Gulliver's capture of a farmer takes him to the farmer's home, where Gulliver is treated kindly, but of course, curiously. The farmer assigns his daughter to be Gulliver's keeper, and she cares for Gulliver with great compassion. The farmer takes Gulliver on a tour across the countryside, displaying him to onlookers. Eventually, the farmer sells Gulliver to the queen. At court, Gulliver meets the king, and the two spends many sessions discussing the customs and behaviors of Gulliver's country. In many cases, the king is shocked by the selfishness and pettiness that he hears Gulliver describe. Gulliver, on the other hand, defends England on the beach. As Gulliver looks at the sea from his box, a portable room, he is snatched up by an eagle and eventually dropped into the sea. A passing ship spots and rescues Gulliver, eventually returning him to England and his family. So, in the third book, Gulliver discovers a flying island. While on the flying island called Laputa, Gulliver meets several inhabitants, including the king. All are preoccupied with things associated with mathematics and music. While in this island, Gulliver visits the island of two weird names, Gulliver finally arrives in Japan, where he meets the Japanese emperor. From there, he goes to Amsterdam and eventually from his home to England. So, in the fourth book, Gulliver loses his crew member and hires several replacement sailors in Barbados. As a result, Gulliver discovered by a herd of ugly, despicable, human-like creatures, yahoos. They attack him by climbing trees and defecting on him. He is saved from his disgrace by the appearance of a horse. Identified, he later learns by the name Hoinhum. With great sadness, Gulliver takes his leave from them and he builds sails to nearby island, where he is eventually found hiding by a crew from a Portuguese ship. This ship captain returns Gulliver to Lisbon, where he lives in the captain's home. Eventually, however, Gulliver agrees to return to his family in England. Upon his arrival, he is repelled by his Yahoo family, so he buys two horses and spends most of his days by caring for and conserving with the horses in this stable, and ordered to be as far away his Yahoo family as possible. So, what are the connections between the text and the prevailing style, and what it suggests? The main connection between the text and the style empiricism is experience. Both talk about the knowledge derived from experience. In that text, we have learned that protagonist Gulliver traveled different places and discovered different attributes and culture. He experienced and gained knowledge about them. In the same way, empiricism talks about these too. Although we know this book does not fully correlate it with empiricism, but if we look from a critical view, that it has influence of empiricism. Yes, I think I'll be able to offer unique and original observation by exploring the connections between connections, because it depicts the idea of new world and new discoveries. So I have prepared three questions. Number one, perspective and relativity are very important aspects of Gulliver's travels. Compare Gulliver's experience in the first and the second parts of the novel. How does Gulliver act differently? How is he treated differently? The question number two, does the author follow the notion of empiricism by the entire book? Question number three, does Gulliver change as the story progresses? Does he learn from his adventure? Give evidence of literary period to illustrate the concept of experience. So here is my statement based on following questions I have made. Is in this text, the author put the theme of human nature by Gulliver, who has experienced and discovered differently in different places he visited. Somewhere he was treated well, and somewhere absolute opposite. This gives the notion of empiricism because he's learning from adventure as well as experience, depicts the concept of the prevailing style, empiricism. So now how can I support my statement? I can support my statement, or I can support or justify my opinion by theoretical aspect and particular term of the prevailing style. That will help to justify my statement. The book Gulliver's Travel gives some more themes such as society and power. All the themes portrayed in the book are fully based on experience and opposite of innate ideas. We might understand any story, but there will be only imagination. But when we experience the exact thing, we understand the realism behind it. So this is how I can justify my opinion. Now the answers, I can support it through the correlation of the text and the prevailing style. So lastly, the list of external texts that helps to develop questions, understanding topic, literary text, and the opinions. So I have listed two books. One is To Heaven and Back, the true story of a doctor's extraordinary walk with God. And the second one is When Breath Becomes Air. Both the following books are based on personal experience. First one is about a true story of a doctor. In this book, the author described his death and afterlife of his death he experienced. But miraculously, he was alive. And second one is also about the mystery of life and death and the responsibility of life. This text also helps to understand and develop questions and the chosen style, empiricism. So that's all from my part. Thank you so much.